Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Live Life Extraordinary podcast. I'm your host, Bianca DeLuco, and today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about high vibe habits and what energy is, why you should care about energy, and things that you can do to raise your personal vibration. So to get started, diving into what energy actually is. So if you've heard anything about like law of attraction and manifestation, you've probably heard that what you put out is what you attract. And there is some truth to this, right? It's not this magic magnet that you just walk out into the world and things literally flock to you, which is how a lot of law of attraction and manifestation teachers kind of present the concept of energy. I think it's a lot more subtle than that, right? You know, when you are at a party and someone walks in and they just light up the room, or there's someone in your social circle that really has a high vibration, you just enjoy being in their presence, or maybe you have someone in your social circle that you don't enjoy being in their presence, or someone at work who feels really dense and hard to be around, someone who's a really negative presence. You might notice energy if you walk into a room where there's an argument that's just taken place and it feels like you can cut the tension with a knife. These are all very subtle examples of how we feel energy all the time. You might encounter a friend who says that they're doing fine, but you can just kind of subtly feel like maybe that's not the truth. Maybe they're not doing so fine. So energy is happening around us all the time. We are giving off energy. The things that we are experiencing in the world around us are giving off energy. And so it's really important for us to be able to evaluate the type of energy that we're carrying around, as well as the energy of the things that we are welcoming into our world. When it comes to our own personal energy, think about if you were going in to ask your boss for a raise. If you go in uncertain, lacking confidence, feeling small, you're probably not going to have the same luck getting that raise as if you go in with confidence and positivity. So this happens in dating and friendships in all sorts of ways. We're always giving off some sort of vibration that people are really either called to experience more of, or they want to set some boundaries around and don't want to experience more of. So if you want that fulfillment in your career, in your romantic relationships, in your friendships, and everywhere you go and everything that you do, it's really important to be able to maintain your own personal energy. I think that our energy is really closely connected to our emotions. If you look at the emotional scale, you'll notice that at the very top of the scale, there are very high vibrational emotions like joy, peace, gratitude, love, appreciation. Those are some of the most positive feeling emotions that we can experience. Then at the center of our emotional scale, we find things like neutral, which are, as they sound, neutral. They're not very positive. They're not very negative. They're just kind of somewhere in between. And then at the bottom, we have things like grief, hopelessness, despair, and all sorts of things like that. Between the bottom and the middle, we have kind of ones that are still negative, but maybe not as powerful as, say, grief or despair. You might have something like powerlessness or fear or frustration. And then on the top of the scale, we have the same thing. We have emotions between neutral and between positive, like hopeful or peaceful or content or just okay. The way that we feel has a huge impact on our vibration that we're giving off. And so a lot of the things we're going to be talking about today are things that impact how we feel, which ultimately impacts the energy that we give off. I find that there are kind of three categories that we need to pay attention to when it comes to our own personal energy and what we're bringing in. The first category is consumption. And often when we talk about consumption, we're talking about food, what we're eating. And our food has a major impact on how we feel and the vibration that we're giving off. Think about when you're eating really dense foods like processed foods or desserts, or even like a lot of carbohydrates or things that are really loaded with like fats. You notice your body feels really sluggish and you feel kind of heavy, you feel kind of bloated, icky, things like that. Versus when you eat things like fresh foods, especially like fruits and citrus fruits especially, you feel a lot more bright, a lot more vibrant. So paying attention to what we're consuming, not just in food, but also in content. The media that you watch has either a positive vibration or a negative vibration. Social media has either a positive, negative, and it's not always one or the other. There's a lot of gray area too. We have things that maybe aren't grief and despair and maybe aren't joy and appreciation, but kind of fall more into those middle grounds that we were talking about earlier. So you want to think about the way that you are consuming things through all of your senses, through what you're looking at, what you're smelling, you're tasting, you're listening to, and that's going to be a pretty big indication as to how your vibration is going to be. So if you're consuming a lot of things that are lowering your vibration, it's time to do kind of a life audit to decide what you're going to continue to consume and what you need to set boundaries around consumption. The next of the 3 categories is surroundings. Thinking about the people you surround yourself with, the items you surround yourself with in your home, the surroundings outside of your home, in your community. If you live in a space that's like really cluttered, you'll find that your vibration is a lot lower than if you live in a space that has open and spaciousness for your energy to grow and expand. If you're surrounding yourself with people who are really negative and always dragging you down, versus if you're surrounding yourself with people who are uplifting you and giving you more positivity. Also, thinking about time that we spend outside. When we are outside, our vibration is much higher. Now, if you are someone like me who lives in the north hemisphere, you might find that it's a lot harder to do in the winter months, but notice how you feel in the summer months when you're spending a lot of time outside in the fresh air, in the dirt, with the sunshine. You probably notice a major difference in the way that you feel in your overall emotions and vibration compared to when you're spending all of your time kind of locked inside. And the last category is activities. So how you're spending your time. Think about how you feel when you're spending your time doing a lot of movement, whether that's yoga or dancing or exercising. You probably feel a lot more positive, a lot more energized than if you're doing things like spending time on the couch, spending a lot of time with technology, whether that's watching TV or scrolling on your phone. So being really mindful of where we're spending our time, how we're spending our time, and what things we're taking in through our 5 senses. So here are 5 high vibe habits that you can start to implement in your life to make sure that you are living in high vibration and that you are calling in more of the things that you want and setting boundaries around the things that you maybe don't want to experience. The first thing is declutter, not just your physical space, but do a full declutter and audit of your life. Think about the people and the places, the foods and the activities, the music and the TV shows that are serving you, and the ones that aren't serving you. And it's really helpful to create maybe a T chart here, that thing that lists things that make you feel good and things that don't make you feel good. So you can see a pretty clear boundary on what you want to put more of your focus into to help raise your vibration and what things you want to set boundaries around so that they're not continuing to drain you. The next thing is having a movement practice. Now, a lot of us have a tough relationship with exercise, I find. We have this idea that we need to be in the gym 7 days a week for an hour in order to maintain our physical bodies, which can be helpful, of course, but any type of movement is a good form of movement. And I've really started focusing on the last several years, not just going to the gym, but doing all sorts of movements that I really enjoy, whether that's roller skating or downhill skiing, swimming, or dancing. It doesn't really matter how you move your body, but motion equals emotion. So if you do the same things you've always done, you'll feel the same way you always felt. If you're someone who's feeling really stuck in your life, that's a good indication that you're probably not moving your body enough and that energy is being trapped within you. So finding ways that you enjoy moving so that you can move those emotions. And emotion is a funny word. Emotion, energy, and motion. That's all your emotions are. So anytime we can do something positive for ourselves emotionally, we're automatically raising our energy and our vibration. The next thing is nutrition. Thinking about the foods that you eat and thinking about them as a way to either raise or lower your vibration. When you're considering what to have for breakfast, lunch, dinner, a snack, a dessert, acknowledge how this item is going to make you feel, if it's going to be in alignment with how you desire to feel in your life. It's really easy to reach for another slice of pizza on a Friday night or reach for another dessert or sweet treat. And I think that we shouldn't demonize food because nutritionally, food isn't moral. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. But when we're over consuming some of these more dense and heavier foods, that's going to be limiting our energy and overall making us not feel great physically, mentally, emotionally, or energetically. So paying attention to our nutrition and what we're consuming to make sure that we're consuming a lot of high vibrational foods that help lift our energy up. Next is the power of a positive perspective playlist, or a PPP as I like to call it. This is a playlist compiled of a bunch of songs that really just help light you up and make you smile. If you ever think about taking a road trip, one of the things that people do is compile a playlist to listen to. When you go to the gym, you compile a playlist of songs that are going to lift you up and amp you up for that exercise or for that drive or for whatever you're doing. Sometimes I find that when I'm cleaning, one of the ways to like make that a more enjoyable task is by having some positive music on that's like uplifting me and making the task feel not so heavy. So creating a positive perspective playlist that you can turn on first thing in the morning or when you're having kind of a slump in your day to really start raising your energy and your vibration. The last thing you can do to really lift your energy is to work on your mindset. If you have negative thoughts all the time, it's going to create negative emotions and negative vibrations 100% of the time. There's no way to out positive a negative mindset. If you're someone that is struggling with a negative mindset, you can do a lot of different things to help start rewiring it. We have this thing called neuroplasticity, which says that our brain is kind of malleable like clay, so we can reform it in a way that is more positive. We're not stuck with a negative mindset just because it's been that way for maybe most of our lives. We have the power to change that. And if you're interested in more support in changing your mindset, next week's episode is going to be all about tools that I've used to personally rewire my mindset to have a more positive perspective on life and take action towards life of my dreams. So make sure you're subscribed if you want to tune into that episode. So this is a lot of information. I hope you take the time to really sit down and do that life audit and start to think about what activities you want to lean into. We're now officially in the season of spring. So if you are watching this when this podcast episode is launched, we are in a season of rebirth, of renewal, of higher energy. So this is a great time to do that kind of spring cleaning of our own selves to start to make forward progress in new areas of our life. So thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the podcast, and I cannot wait to connect with you again soon.